Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today has been dedicated for the speedy and complete refuah shlema of Tamar Yelet Bat Huta, and also for the Azkara and Leilu Nishmat Esther Sasson, Esther Bat Behiyeh Avraham, who passed away last night. Ruach Adonai Terecheh Began Eden. Hivucho Benot Tzeh Shochvot Imam B'Charachim V'Aslichot. It's been sponsored by her son Albert Sasson. Dear mother and dear grandmother to our stalwart and pillar, Adam Sasson, who's here with us all the time, learning, praying together with us in the Beit Knesset. Hashem should bring you and your family comfort in this difficult time. Breakfast in the Class also dedicated to the Refuah Shlema of Mordechai ben Yafa, and sponsored by Sylvia and Abraham Galapo, dedicated loving memory of Sylvia's father, Harold Sunigo, Lilu Nishmat Shemuel ben Negma. Also dedicated in loving memory, Lilu Nishmat Simcha Bat Rachel, sponsored by her son Rabbi Avidan, and sponsored by Eileen, dedicated in honor of her husband, Aaron Furman, on their second anniversary. He inspires her to grow and become a better person every day. May he continue to grow in Torah and Mitzvot to bring light to everyone around him. Also dedicated in loving memory, Lilu Nishmat, our father and grandfather, Yosef Aaron Isaac Benjamin Bezborodoko, Alav Shalom, for his second Askara, Yosef Aaron Yitzchak Benyamin Ben David, who loved Israel, was dedicated to helping his family and friends. Also for the complete recovery for Hashem of his grandson, Yaakov Haim Ben Tamar Hana, by Tammy, Jeremy, Kobe, Duvi, and Daphna Horowitz. It should be for Refuah Shlema for Chana Bat Simfega and Eliyahu Shmuel Ben Mazal for Tuneh. And this entire year of Breakfast in the Class is dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Ruth Orfali Bat Adela, Ruth Bat Adela Orfali, sponsored by her entire family. The week of Kobru, sponsored by David Yash, in honor of you and your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. My friends, I want to share with you today a very powerful idea, an idea that maybe kind of comes from a strange place, but if you give it a minute, you'll see where it's going in the broader scheme of things. The pasuk says, "Baruch tihiyeh mikol ha'amim," blessed shall you be, mipi, right, from mikol ha'amim, from all the nations. The literal interpretation of that is you should be blessed from all the nations. From all the other nations, you should be the most blessed. That's a literal interpretation. However, there are some that explain the pasuk to mean Baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim. You should be blessed by all the nations. All the nations of the world should bless you. They should give you berachot. How far are we today from that concept, that all the nations of the world should be blessing Am Yisrael? However, the pasuk says, when the time comes, when you're doing things the right way, Baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim, the nations of the world, all of them, will bless Am Yisrael. Lo yeh becha akar v'akara bebetecha. There will not be anyone who is akar or akara. You will not have anyone who's had children withheld from them, and as well in the animals. Hashem will take away any suffering, any pain, any disease, and all of that will go instead on the nations, so to speak, and the people that are haters of Am Yisrael, that are destroyers of peace in the world, etc., etc. Now, there's something here very interesting, said over from the from the Hatam Sofer. The Hatam Sofer says, this pasuk is an interesting setup. You should be blessed by all the people in Am Yisrael, of all the nations. And then followed by, Lo yeh becha akar v'akara. You won't have an akar v'akara. It's a very specific thing to follow those words with. You should be blessed by everybody, and you should not be held back from giving birth to children. Why those two things placed side by side? Says a Hatam Sofer, a fascinating insight. He says, the Gemara, the Midrash in Bereshit Rabbah tells us that Rivka was akara. She was someone who was unable to have children. And why was Rivka akara? Even though we have a more general principle that the forefathers were akarot in order that God should hear their prayers, but specifically, why was Rivka akara? Says the Midrash, because she was blessed by Lavan. Lavan said to Rivka, At hi achotenu, our sister, At hi la'alfei revava. You should become to tens of thousands. That's how many children you should have in your offspring. So those berachot from Lavan to Rivka, we didn't want those berachot. We didn't want Rivka to become pregnant. We didn't want those blessings to affect the children that she would have. So therefore, in order that they should not be connected with the berachot of Lavan, God made sure that Rivka did not have children for an extended period of time, so that those blessings would not have been relevant to the children of Rivka. Now, we have to understand what the Midrash is telling us. What's the Midrash communicating? If God didn't want to answer the blessings of Lavan, so God wouldn't answer the blessings of Lavan. Why was it important that Hashem should have Rivka not have children in order to avoid the blessing of Lavan, who was a Rasha? And the answer, I think, is something really, really powerful. And in order to understand it properly, I want to perhaps take a step out of this place and then come back here for 1 minute. So follow me on this. So since Lavan gave a beracha, God didn't want there to be an association between the beracha of Lavan for the children of Rivka, i.e. the birth of Am Yisrael. So therefore, God made sure that Rivka did not have children. The pasuk over here comes to tell you, you'll be blessed by all the nations of the world. They'll all give you berachot, and still lo yeh becha akar v'akara v'emtecha. There will be no problem, no issue for you to be able to have children after those berachot. It specifically chose that beracha to hearken back to an earlier beracha that was given by people that were not Jewish, that were effectively haters of the Jewish people. Lavan tries to poison Eliezer, tries to make sure that Rivka does not go back to build the nation of Israel. So that beracha causes akara. So in order that you should see that that doesn't take place over here, that's where the pasuk gave that specific example. But we have to really understand on a more seminal level, what exactly is this worry? What are we worried about? So in order to understand that, please only answer amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol nהיה baro. My friends, I want to try and explain this to you from a pasuk that some of you might be familiar with in Bereshit. The pasuk tells us about Avraham Avinu. Avraham goes to war to save his nephew Lot in the war between the 5 kings and the 4 kings. The 4 kings outmaneuver, they overpower, they win the war against the 5 kings. That's how powerful they were. Avraham Avinu realizes that they've taken Lot, his nephew. He rides into battle. He defeats the 4 kings in battle miraculously. Comes one of the 5 kings and says to Avraham, listen, do me a favor. You've saved us. Thank you so much. Take whatever you want. Just give me the people. Give me my people back. Avraham says, I'm not going to take from you michut ve'ad siroch na'al. I'm not going to take from you from a string, a thread, to a shoelace. In other words, I'm taking nothing. Ve'lo tomash, you should not say, Anochi he'esharti et Avraham, that I was the one who made Avraham rich. That's what Avraham says. Now, it's a little interesting to me. I understand that you can't take the king of Sodom's 401k. I understand that you can't take the king of Sodom's embassy on 5th Avenue. I get it, the Sodom embassy, I get it. That's an expensive item. Someone might think that that's what made Avraham wealthy because he took his 401k, he took all of his stocks in Tesla. That's what made Avraham. If he would have taken a shoelace, what was the worry that the king of Sodom would say, I was the one who made Avraham wealthy? Well, from your shoelace? By the way, Avraham was already independently wealthy. Why in the world would that have caused them to say it? My friends, the answer is history. It doesn't matter if it's true. If the Jew got anything from anyone, what happened after the Jew made money? What did the people say? You made all your money from us. All this belongs to us. Give it back to us. We made you wealthy. Really? What did you give me? When the Jews made wealth in Europe, in Arab lands, when they had most jobs were restricted from them. They couldn't get educated to get jobs that required an education. They weren't allowed into the colleges to become doctors or lawyers or accountants. What were they allowed to do? They couldn't own land. And yet, somehow, when the Jews made money, what do the people say of that country? Parasites. You stole all of our money. Avram understood. If he took a shoelace, what would the king of Sodom later say? That guy, everything he has, it's all mine. I gave him his start in the business. I started him off with a shoelace. Look at what he turned it into. Unbelievable. You understand? Number one. Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. Is that claim valid? Of course not. But Abraham teaches us it doesn't matter if it's valid. You know why? Because if people will say that Abraham's wealth comes from the king of Sodom, I ask you, where does the king of Sodom's wealth come from? Huh? Where does the king of Sodom's wealth come from? Robbery from the people of Sodom, the most wicked people on earth. Avram says, I cannot have that the king of Sodom should say that my money comes from him. You know why? Because where did his money come from? From theft. It came from torturing people. It came from kicking everybody out of his city. It came from never inviting a guest into their home. It came from punishing people who did chesed. Avram says, if money came from there, then you know what will happen? It has no beracha. That we all agree? If money comes from an impure source, it has no beracha. But Avram teaches us one step further. What if money does not come from an impure source? But people will say it came from an impure source. There's no beracha in that money either. Why? Because if the people believe the narrative that Avram's money comes from Sodom, then every dollar Avraham makes is a chilul Hashem in public. That's what comes from dishonest money? I want to ask you a question. There's a guy stealing money from everybody. Anyway, guy calls you up. He says, listen, I want you to write me up the contracts for the... Anyway, you're sitting there, you're a lawyer in your own law firm, you're thinking to yourself, I'm not ripping people off. I'm not stealing anything. All I'm doing is writing contracts. If he doesn't come to me, he's going to go to somebody else. I'm not taking the money. I'm not making the terms. The guy told me what to write. I wrote it up. I gave it back to him. You think to yourself, what's the problem with that? I will tell you, in this world, it does not work like that. In the world, when they bring him down for the theft that he's done, you know what's going to be on the front page? That Shlomo Fari's law firm wrote all the crooked contract. You understand? That's how they're going to lead that article. No one cares that a slumlord is a slumlord. They care that it's a religious Jew who's a slumlord. They don't know the Lord. They just know how to put it in an anti-Semitic headline. My friends, Abraham says, I can't take a shoelace. You know why? Because the nature of things is that he's going to say he made me rich. And if he's going to say that, what's going to happen? People are going to believe that. And if people are going to believe that, then my success looks like it was built on something dishonest. And if that's the case, then what? Then every penny I earn is a chilul Hashem. My business, my parnasah cannot be blessed. A lot of times people say to me, Rabbi, but you see people who are dishonest, and you see that they're making more and more money. Let me teach you one thing about economics. More money doesn't mean you're successful. More money doesn't mean that you're blessed. Sometimes that more money brings you a far worse life. Maybe more money is God's way of cursing that fellow. Point number one. Point number two, how many times have we seen a guy who has a great business? It's doing really well. And what does the guy do now that he has a lot of money in the bank? He thinks to himself, you know what I need to do? I need to go to the next level. So Hada, who has retail stores, Hada was doing a great job at wholesale, Hada was doing a fantastic job at running a service business, now has a nice amount of money. And what does this newly rich, nouveau riche guy do? Now he's got to get into real estate. So he takes all his $15 million, all that money, he puts it into a building. And then everyone stops coming to work in the office. and then he gets slaughtered in the real estate market. There are times when you see a person making more money, but actually, had he made a little less money, he'd still be rich. He'd still have money. He got to a point where that more money made him chase a whale of a deal, and that whale swallows him up. Call him Jonah. My friends, the pasuk over here is telling us something unbelievable. Baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim. I'm blessing you, Hashem says, that all the nations of the world should give you a beracha. But still, lo tiyeh akar ve'akara be'emtecha. There should never be a time where the beracha of a person who's a wicked person comes back to hurt you. Do you understand what that means? There should never be a time where if you got involved and you didn't know, someone presented themselves like a friend or an honest person. It shouldn't be that when I was just sitting here doing nothing, that I wind up the victim of a Chilul Hashem related downturn in order to be able to preserve that concept. But my friends, we learn from here a powerful lesson, not only with regards to blessings, but also with regards to involvement. Most people will tell you that one of the reasons why you shouldn't be involved with dishonest people is because there's no beracha. And I kind of feel like that's missing the point. It's true that when we do the right thing, we get beracha. And when we do the wrong thing, unfortunately, sometimes we get a punishment for that wrong thing. But the reason why you don't do the wrong thing and the reason why you do the right thing is not because you're going to get a beracha. It's because that's the right thing. So if there's a situation, right, when you're involved with someone and you know what, I'm only this part of the deal, I can't really influence it, I'm not this so involved, I'm only running the contracts, I'm just doing the this, I'm just doing the that. The Torah over here is telling you, without a special blessing from God to protect you from that association will bring you down. I had a fellow once who said to me, Rabbi, are you doing anything? Do you have any business opportunities or ventures? I don't have many business opportunities or ventures. I have a few. I have a few business opportunities and ventures. Very few. But I don't have many. The guy said to me, you have any business opportunities? I said, what do you want? He says, I want to be partners with you. I was very flattered. I said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I don't have anything to offer you. I'm not exactly sure even what that means. But my friends, whether or not he was right about me being someone that's a good person to partner with in a business deal, the idea was beautiful. Now forget a rabbi. We should be seeking to partner with good people, with honest people, with holy people, with good people. And when you find a good person, even if the good person's price is a little bit higher than the bad person's price, don't go with this guy because you think you're saving a couple pennies. Almost always, it's going to cost you in the end. Almost always. In the end, the fact that he's a bad guy means that you didn't save anything. It just means that he's structured in a way where you don't know yet how he's going to steal your money, or how he's going to overcharge you with something else, or how he's going to rewrite the contract at the last minute. And my friends, this happens all the time. People take a business deal, they give you a price on a building, on a thing, on an apartment, on a house. They take you all the way to closing. You need the money. You have to close. You already paid the closing costs. You got the lawyers. And at that point, right at the sell, they say, listen, the price is not going to work for us. They knew the whole time that they were going to hold you up at gunpoint when you were vulnerable and needed to close. My friend, that is a ganav. Just wearing different clothing. Who are you? Who are you as a person? Are you a person who deals with the king of Sodom? And it doesn't matter if you take 50 million or 5 million or 500,000 or a shoelace. You stay away from people like that like they are the plague. Not because there's not going to be beracha there, but because associating with wicked and associating with dishonest people means that you will have a portion in dishonesty, in wickedness, in taking advantage of other people. By definition. And it doesn't matter what percentage we learn from Abraham. Whatever the percent. My friends, when a person is thinking that way, then they find themselves in the company of kosher people. You know, it's a funny thing. There's a famous teaching that they say over from the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim says everyone is very careful with the laws of kosher, what they put in their mouth. Far fewer people are careful with what comes out of their mouth. That's what Chafetz Chaim says about Lashon Hara. And I was thinking to myself, you know something? Sometimes I wish people were cannibals. You know why? Because then they'd be careful if the people they're dealing with were kosher.
Rabbi, what do we do?
1 second. Do you understand that? We seek kosher people. We interact with kosher people. We spend time with kosher people. We go on vacation with kosher people. If we're going to get an apartment somewhere in Israel with Sami Ayal and Matobu, Be'ezat Hashem, yeah? You want to go do that? Find out who's on your floor. Who else is buying in that building? Who are your kids going to be playing with? Who are your grandkids going to be hanging out with? Do you understand this? Seeking kosher people is at least as important as kosher restaurants and kosher food. Now there's an app on the phone, a little shout out over here, called Kosher Near Me. Anyone hear about this? Amazing. The only thing I'll tell you is, just because it's on Kosher Near Me doesn't mean it's kosher enough for you. You have to individually check the kashrut of each place on Kosher Near Me to make sure that the kashrut of that place fits your, but at the very least, it finds kosher in your vicinity, okay? I wish someone could develop an app to find the kosher people around you. Holding up your phone. No, not that guy. Okay, this guy. What are you doing today? How you doing? Let's spend some time learning. Maybe we should start a chaburah together, a class. Those are the people you want to do business with. Those are the people you want to hang out with. Those are the people that you want to be able to achieve things with. And when a person does that for the right reason, then you know what happens. Then Hashem blesses that endeavor. And it's not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing. Those difficulties in the beginning, or the few points that you had to sacrifice, or the extra couple pennies you had to pay in order to, give the business to that guy. My friends, that's well worth the sacrifice in the long run. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. You have a